up, family, creative and process people out there in the world, on the internets, on the podcast apps, the YouTubes, all of the things. What's going on? My name is Nia Land. If you are new here, but we're at episode 6, so I'm hoping that you're just following along. But if you're new, welcome. We are digging into some more stuff today, and I'm excited to be here to talk to you. I hope that you have been having an amazing season. I'm navigating through a really crazy schedule in life, and both business and personal, and just that sort of thing. But I am dedicated to this podcast project and it's slowly growing. I'm excited about that. I'm grateful that you all are tuning in more and more, and I'm seeing your comments and all that kind of stuff. I'm really excited for the voice comments that are on the website. So please check that out. Go to creativeandprocess.com where you can leave an actual voice comment. And it could be a question, it could be feedback or whatever, something that can be included on future episodes. So please take advantage of the technology and the fanciness. I would love to hear that. But in the meantime, we are going to have a conversation that is derived from your perspective and the things that you have to say. About when I was building up the podcast and getting ready for it, I posed a question. I did some little teasers here and there. Y'all didn't even know what was going on. But I posed a few questions and got some feedback in the comments, right? So today I'm going to go back to one of those questions and just read some of the commentary that's on there. I haven't looked at it in a while, so I don't remember what all was in the comments. I know that there was some good stuff in there, so I'm intentionally waiting to do it within this podcast. I didn't want to be too super prepared or overthinking it or whatever the case may be. So we're going to jump right in and get to it. This particular question is posed for my creative, artistic people. However, I do know that the responses are going to be for everybody, just because there are different ways to get perspective, regardless of whether or not you're in a particular field. I think you can gain and glean wisdom from lots of different things, even if you're not directly involved with the theme of a thing. So I'm going to jump right into this question that I posed, and I'm going to see what the comments said, and I'm just going to pick a good one, and we're going to make that our topic for today. If that's cool, say that's cool. Cool? All right, here we go. So the question was, for my artistic folks, what topic needs to be more of a conversation as it relates to what it takes to be a creative person? I seriously want to know your thoughts. All creative people, let's discuss. So that was the question I was posing to kind of elaborate on what the point of the question was. It was to say, like, in the journey of being an artistic, creative person, what is something that comes up in your life, whether it be from the business side, the creative side, or just everyday life, something that people don't necessarily understand, that's not talked about, that doesn't seem to be at the forefront of conversations and that sort of thing. And because I am very much about the holistic situation, like I am an artist, I do create, I do all the technical business things, I am also very much aware of the fact that creative individuals in the artistic field have a certain wiring and the way that we think, the things that we go through. Not to say that we are just so completely different, but we're wired in a way that maybe something that happens in the life of someone that isn't artistic, it can happen a certain way and garner certain responses and things like that. Whereas if it happens to a person that's artistic, it might just hit in a different way. And there may be some type of different consideration to be taken, so that you don't assume that everyone responds or should respond to something a certain way, because artistic people, sometimes we think with a different part of our brain, so things come out a little differently. So that was the question. I was kind of buffering it and give you a little bit more context. But I'm gonna jump in the comments right now and see which one we're gonna pull for the topic for today. So I haven't looked at these in a while, but I remember them being really, really good. So let me see what we can touch on and where we can go. I'm literally scrolling right now. You all can't see me doing that, but I have quite a bit of them, and I feel like I'm going to try to tap into at least two of them today and see where we can go from there. So I'll just go in order because maybe that'll make more sense that way. So I have one from at Doc Jr. on Instagram. And one of the things that he says is maybe a concept or a conversation that's not really being had is, let's see. Oh, sorry, he did a two-parter here. Sometimes when we interact with people who aren't creatives, we feel socially awkward. So I could touch on that a little bit. And there is some truth to that in some degrees, because I feel like when we walk into a room in a situation, it's so easy to talk about the artistic side and the creative thing. And there's two caveats to that. It can be socially awkward when you go into a room and nobody understands where you're coming from. It's hard. And sometimes being in a room full of creatives, sometimes it can be overwhelming because there's just so many layers and levels. But I think for me, I have found such a refreshing, it's been such a refreshing place to walk into rooms with people who maybe they don't do the exact same thing that you do, but they are like intrigued enough to just ask qualifying questions. Because me as an individual, period, one way to get information out of me is to ask me a question, because there is so much going on in my brain that just asking an open question like, how are you? What do you do? Those kinds of things. That is too much for me. Like, I need you to be specific. Like, oh, you work in music. What kind of music do you do? What's your day to day? Breaking down that. Or if we've talked before, circling back like, hey, last time we spoke, you were working on this. How's that going? That's where I can thrive. It is like impossible for me to just start from scratch in any conversation. Like, I can give you a little bit, but I'm going to need some follow-up questions, because I'm going to think that maybe you don't get what I'm saying, or maybe I'm saying too much, because there is so much going on in my brain at once. It's just so much happening. It's very hard for me to articulate in a moment everything. And so I feel like, I wonder if they're even listening to me. I wonder if I'm talking too much, or if I sound like I'm rambling, or if I'm not clear, and all that kind of stuff. So I will say, to that point, it can be socially awkward to walk into rooms and have certain conversations, because I can go on and on and on about the artistic, creative stuff, what I'm doing, what I'm working on. But at the core, I'm very much a person too. And I have other thoughts about other things that's not necessarily creative related. So finding that space to have conversations and socialize and all of that stuff, and it not just be about the music, because a lot of times, and it's not a bad thing, but people are intrigued by what you do. And so they want to ask a lot of questions and they want to know so much about it. But in certain situations, maybe you don't want to talk about that as much. Like, if there's like something specific happening, you're at an event that is centered around what you do, then cool. But sometimes it's like, yeah, I do all of that, but right now I'm just trying to just be, not trying to be on in that creative way. So it can make for some awkward conversations. But I am very much interested in all sorts of things. And even if I don't do what you do, or I can't relate to like your lifestyle or whatever, I do like asking questions, because I'm just intrigued by how people live their lives outside of what's normal to me. So I always like to, inquire and ask questions. So a lot of times people say like, man, that's a good question you ask. Or like, man, you're really getting in depth into what it is that I do. Do you do this, or do you know someone that does this? And I'll be like, no, I don't. I just am very interested in what other people are passionate about. Even if I don't understand it, even if I don't do it, I can my mind can go to that place of just really internalizing what is special to other people. So I like to have conversations about certain things and just ask stuff, not because I'm necessarily trying to pursue it or take it on, but just because it's something else. So I think that we're all gifted with different passions and talents and gifts and all of that kind of stuff. And so for me, it's interesting to see kind of like what God put in somebody else. Like, wow, how's your wiring? Because I know what my wiring looks like. How is yours? So that's one aspect of that thing. So I'll do the part two of his statement, and it is, he's saying that being a creative makes it so, this is him speaking, I can't spend time with my family in the way that I want to. Sadly, neglect comes with being great at what we do. I hope we all get the balance we desire. So that is a whole nother level of conversation for sure, because there is, I think this is what's going to take us through to the end here because he's saying something really, 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 really deep in that space. Because as a artistic, creative person, and especially one that kind of has laid it all out there, put it all on the line, sacrificed to pursue this thing, it can be extremely isolating, not because you want to be, but just because there's a focus that you have that a lot of people don't understand. I remember when I was kind of first starting out and, doing things and building up my music, writing songs, doing shows and things like that. People were so like, they couldn't understand, like, well, why don't you just go on American Idol? As if that is it. Like, that's it. That's all you have to do to be like famous or whatever, get a record deal, go on American Idol. And there's so many layers and levels to it that it's like, yeah, no, it doesn't just work like that. First of all, you have to get selected. Like, they may or may not choose you, and it's voter based. So if someone decides they don't like your hair and they don't want to vote for you, you're not going to succeed. So all those different things. And there is a level, I will say this, there are creative people in the artistic realm, from my experience, because, I don't know everything, but I definitely have seen this time and time again. There are different types of people in that space. You have those that do it because it's hobby, it's something they just like to do, it's interesting to them, it kind of helps them to give their brain room to do other things outside of whatever their normal day-to-day is. Then you have those that are a little bit more serious about it, but they still have other things that they do that take priority. And that's cool too. It could be like a full-time job or whatever the case may be. And then there are those who I believe have a level of understanding that, this is such a huge part of what I'm here to do, what I'm purposed to do, what I'm here to become, that I have to give my attention to this. I have to see what's on the other side of this thing. And that is where you have those instances where there's so much more sacrifice, time spent, so much more dedication to the process of it all, that I think a lot of people don't understand that. I get questioned a lot of times just from people that know me like on a day-to-day. And they'll say, like, they'll hear all about, oh, you do the music, you do this, you do that. Cool, that's great, that's amazing. And then they'll say, so what do you do for work? And that's a very reasonable question in most cases. But when they hear that it's like, this is it, this is what I do, this is my job, this is my career, it's like, oh, really? Like, how does that work? Because I don't see you on billboards and I don't see you, packing out arenas. So how is this your job? Not understanding that there are so many layers and levels, and that a mainstream signed, super famous superstar artist is backed with such other support and entities behind them that what you see is pretty much controlled by so many other people and entities. Whereas an independent artist, which I am, does all of that on their own. So I don't necessarily have the financial backing. I don't have the business partnerships and relationships in that way, on that scale, I should say, because I do have partnerships. I do have different things that I do have access to help push my career further. But it's all to get through that process of the journey for what is for you and what you believe you're called to do. And so I think those that do not do anything in the arts, that are not creative, sometimes it could be friends, it could be family, they just don't understand. They really can't comprehend because they get up and they have their job. And I've said this before, if you are an artist and you have a job, that is totally fine. That is nothing to be ashamed of. It doesn't make you less passionate. It doesn't make you less focused. You're doing what you have to do for you. Some people are supposed to do it that way, and others are meant to do it completely 100% full-time, whatever. So with that, it does cause you to be separate a lot. And I know in my experience, especially now, it wasn't so much starting off because it was just kind of a different time. But as I've gotten older and really my mind shifted in certain space and getting to a place of being clear about what I'm supposed to do and my purpose, it does cause you to miss out on some things you don't show up for. Because it's like, I got to work, I got to, I'm on tour, I have a show, I have this, I got to finish this project and all that kind of stuff. And there is room to absolutely figure out how to make it work for where you are. Absolutely. There is space for that, but you have to find out what it is. And sometimes there is a season, there is a time span where you just can't do what everyone is expecting you to do, what everyone would prefer for you to do, because you are in a level of focus, you are in a level of productivity that causes you to be away. And it's hard when friends, family, people that are close to you don't understand that or don't respect it, because it's almost like, well, you could just not do it. Like, just don't go, just don't do the thing. Not understanding that, like, yeah, I don't have the luxury of just dropping this. Just like you get up and you go to work every day, you can't just not go just because you don't feel like it. Like, you could, but there may be some consequences underlying in that. And in the creative space, when you're a full-time artist, look, there is no such thing as PTO. I can't call nobody to call off. Like, I just have to take a loss if there's something happening on that day and I feel like I am too overwhelmed to do it. I have to actually take a hit, because there is no such thing as calling off or not doing it or whatever. So there's a luxury there that we are not afforded, because it does fall completely on us. So for me, in my experience, I've had to learn how to balance, like to really put my calendar in a place to where I'm putting things on my calendar that are, social or familial, to be able to do things with family and that sort of thing, to still feed my humanity, still feed my soul in a way that I can spend time with loved ones, because you do need that support. You want to be able to take time away from what you do and be able to spend time with those people that don't require anything of you but for you to be who you are, and they don't expect you to sing a song or perform or be on in that way. And so that's refreshing, and that's helpful to like rejuvenate, but that can't always happen also. And so I think that I'll speak on behalf of some creatives, and you all can chime in and tell me if I'm inaccurate or if you don't agree. But I would say that if a person is creative, or they have, some type of creative gifting, and they are working that out and they're passionate about it and they're doing their thing, and they make time to show up to your whatever it is, dinner, barbecue, birthday, whatever, I would say cherish that and appreciate that, because that came with some extreme sacrifice that you have no idea about. That came with some extreme measures to make that happen, because being in this space, it's a 24/7. Your brain doesn't turn off. Like, you have to just find a way to like not allow your thoughts to be intrusive to the point that you never rest or, relax or whatever the case may be. But at any given time, you can sit as long as you are clear and you are, mindful of like your mental health and that sort of thing. The thoughts, the ideas, they'll come. They're always there. You just have to be in a place where you can hear and you can receive and you can go forward. So because of that, when a person makes time for you and they are in that field of creativity and that sort of thing, it did take some maneuvering and some things had to happen to get them in that space, because like I said, they're never off in their mind. There's always something happening in there. So it's like making a conscious decision to say, okay, well, today I'm not doing this. I'm going to go spend time with this person or do that. So if you have someone in your life that has that lifestyle and they are in that artistic space, and you see them consistently doing things, they're doing events or interviews or whatever the case may be, and they show up for something that you have going on, take that seriously, because they could be doing something in their creative passion for a purpose, could really be working on something, or they could be planning and seizing opportunities and all that stuff, but instead they're spending time with you. So cherish that. And on the counter, if someone in your life is a creative person and they cannot be at something, give them grace and don't make them, or don't project the frustration onto them. Now, if they are just flagrant and they don't ever show up for nothing, they're never to be found, they're always disconnected and all that kind of stuff, then that might be a deeper conversation. But if they're trying their best to try to reach their goals and achieve these different dreams they have, and they just can't make something, don't hold it against them as a person. Maybe meet them where they are and say, hey, are you're in the studio today? That's what you're working on? Okay, cool. What can I do, or how can I spend time with you even though you're in this busy space? What can you do? And it might be like a FaceTime call. It might be, something quick, or, a conversation or something like that. But whatever you're able to offer, maybe it's something that can help them, be more available to you. So that's just a little tidbit of wisdom, I would say, because that's something that I know for me is helpful, because it's like when people just assume like, oh my God, of course you busy, or kind of get a little bit of an attitude about the fact that I may not be available for something, it doesn't always feel good, because it's like, man, you have no idea like how hard I'm fighting for this thing that I see that you can't see, but I know is there, and I have to reach this thing. So I would say be a little bit more kind. So I guess this is kind of turning into partially not just the perspective of what a creative person, goes through, but also as one that is connected to someone who is that way, being able to give them grace and show compassion for where they are, to be able to execute and be able to treat them, a certain way so that they can be successful. Because no matter how talented, gifted, whatever you want to call it, a person is, if they don't feel affirmation and support from the people that know them best, it can be devastating. It can be debilitating, and it can be really hard. And if you believe in your person of, whatever creative discipline, if you believe in them for real, then you would want them to succeed in what they do. And the way that they succeed is a huge part of that, because some people have to do it without. If I'm honest, over the years, my level or my support resources have gone down a whole lot. Life happening, people not understanding or not wanting to understand, causes different rifts and separations and things like that. And honestly, I'll get back to that point, but because of that, I say that when it comes to things that I do even now, it's hard, because it's like if it feels, it's so encouraging to go to a show and see someone that that has someone that has your number, that knows you, and it's like they're rooting for you. That is like chef's kiss, top tier. And it's also extremely discouraging for people that know what you're going through and they just refuse to show up. And that doesn't necessarily mean showing up in physical person, but just they don't acknowledge, they don't, all that kind of stuff. So saying all that to say that it really, really does help, and it really, really does encourage your fellow, well, not your fellow, but the person in your life that is an artistic creative person. It encourages them in a way that you'll never understand or never really, really know, like how many times creatives spend time by themselves. And for real, y'all, like if you're out there and you're listening, share your thoughts, because I don't want to speak for anybody, but I also know that I'm not wrong. But how many times the creative person is, to themselves in the quiet moments, struggling to start again, to do more, to press themselves and to continue, and how much more helpful it would be for someone that they know loves them to call them and say, hey, what's going on with what you're working on? What's new? Do you need support? Is there any way I can help you? Or just simply telling them, hey, keep going. I believe in what you're doing. It's amazing. All of that. So all of these things help, just in case you would like to know, if you have someone in your life. But getting back to the root of the question that Doc Jr. posted, the statement, I should say, it's definitely, we want to be around and we want to be present, but we just can't always do that. And sometimes when things and it's a good thing, like if things are picking up and progressing, then that means there's less availability that you have, but you are still, reaching your dreams. So that's to be celebrated. And that's something that if you have loved ones in your life, they can benefit from that. Not just financially, y'all. Don't be trying to push your creative people in your life to success so that you can hold something, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, as far as them being able to offer something to the world that everyone can get something from, like that's a huge deal. So being supportive of that is very, very essential and very, very helpful. And I believe that we could all stand to be a little bit more compassionate about the things that people do in their everyday life, because you just don't know what it takes for them to get to that place of, you may think that they are like full of confidence and they might be struggling, or you may feel like they got it all together and they're just really trying to navigate. I was speaking with someone recently and I was just saying, like, just like you get to go to work, and do your job, whatever your 9-to-5 career is. Let's say if it's not an artistic thing, you show up for work when you don't feel the best. You may not physically feel well. You may have stuff going on in your personal life and you could be stressed out, anxious, all that. But at the end of the day, you got to go clock in for work because you have to provide for yourself and your family. So unless you have the PTO to take off, but you have to use that lightly because it runs out and all of that. So you have to do what you have to do basically in that space. So just like you do also as creative individuals, we have to do what we have to do too. So yes, you see me at a show singing and smiling and all of that. I'm at work. I don't get to necessarily just fall apart. Now, there are some levels of vulnerability that does help the creative process to come out, but there is also some responsibility in that too. Like, you can't show up to every show and you screaming and crying and you just complaining about your life. After a while, people are like, yeah, I don't know, she'd be a little unhinged, And I know that there's a culture, that's a whole nother conversation, but there's a culture of, these highly emotional, depressed, mentally unstable people that create, and they get praised for it because we're all like feeding into this traumatic state that this person is in, and they're capitalizing off of it. But after a while, no matter who you are, like, there's going to become and irrationality that comes from that. So you have to learn how to take care of your business at the same time. So I'm saying that to say that just because you see an artistic person thriving doesn't mean that they are not having a hard time in their own everyday life. They're gifted. So the gift is there regardless of whether or not they are having a good day on their own. They may get off stage and have to go take care of some really heavy business in their life, in their family, or whatever, and you would never know unless they told you. So don't assume that just because someone shows up and they thrive in their gift that everything is just amazing with them and their life is great. They don't need no support. They don't need check-ins, nothing like that, because look at how good they sang, look at how beautiful that painting is and all that. So grace is the point of it all to say that. But also give grace to your artistic creative person in your life, and to the person that is creative, make sure that you are doing the best that you can to be as accessible and available to those that are supposed to receive from you in that way as you can, because sometimes we can also get so wrapped up in our schedule and being productive that we're not even thinking about, like, I ain't even thought about so and so, or mother, father, brother, sister, friend, whatever. I ain't even thinking about it because I got this on this. But I try very hard to unplug, decompress, and then find myself in spaces. And if I'm not around, for extensive amounts of time, there could be just because I'm trying to deal with life at the same time. And so, I think it's just a matter of giving grace, meaning don't always assume the worst. Don't always define somebody to be this terrible whatever because they didn't show up for something. You don't know what they're going through, what they're dealing with, and what they're processing through. And especially when it comes to us creatives, like, we are literally trying to create something that we can't see, we can't express necessarily, we can't necessarily articulate it. It's just like when we know, we know, and we get it out, and we're pushing for something that we see off in the distance, and we don't know how we're going to get there, what dots are going to connect. We have to fall so many times. We have to hear no so many times. We have to be ignored so many times. And that can drain a person from the constant disappointments and the constant rejections and all of that kind of stuff. So there's a lot going on in that process, and then you creating something and you get stuck, or you think it's good and then you put it out there and it doesn't get the response that you think that it deserves, and so you get discouraged and you're questioning yourself, and so much stuff. So all in all, there are reasons why we can't pull up every day, because we have something going on and we are striving for something bigger than ourselves. And sometimes it takes a little bit more energy, hours, time, focus, consideration. And sometimes we just drain. Sometimes we've poured all of that stuff out. We've given all of that stuff, and our body needs to literally decompress from what we have just gave from our soul. Like, it's a lot. I know when I do live shows, I gotta get quiet and still and away, after the fact. Sometimes I just gotta eat because I be hungry because I don't really eat. That's the thing. Like, I'll be so not stressed out. Sometimes I do, but sometimes the anxiety is so high. The adrenaline is so high. It's like you don't have time to eat or anything. You're just trying to get through to the project, the performance, or whatever, and then you can focus on you later. So yeah, it's a whole thing. Sometimes, for me, a lot of times it's initially, for sure, it's about the people that are going to receive from what I have. It's about me last. I do have to work on making that a little bit more reasonable, because when I say I put myself all the way on the back burner and focus completely solely on the people that are going to receive, to the point where it's like, okay, I could probably give myself a little bit room. I could bring myself a little bit closer to the front, but that's something that I'm working out right now. But all in all, I think it's about grace, and it's about being able to, a lot of people will say balance. I hear you on the concept of balance, but I would challenge you to have a different perspective. This is something that I actually heard from one of my I might have said this before on a previous episode. I think I may have, but I'm gonna reiterate because it's really a good point and it helps me all the time. And I heard this from one of my pastor friends that I follow. And so the concept is not to have balance, but to have harmony. Because when you think about balance, it's just like two things that are on the same level versus harmony, where one entity does its part, the other entity does its part, and together they have this cohesive beauty that goes so well together. And I think that I would rather live my life seeking out the things or positioning myself to have harmony among things versus just balance, because balance sometimes can be without intention. It's just like, here, I got to do this, so here you got to do that, here we go, versus like, let's see how this can fit in here and let's see how we can make this flow and what it can become when we put it together, that kind of thing. So living a life of harmony is the goal for me. And maybe that's something that encourages you as well. But just taking those moments and focusing in on how to make the most out of this journey, giving yourself grace when you can't be everywhere and do everything. And again, for those that know people that are in this space, giving them grace and showing them love and compassion, and even asking like, hey, I know you're working on this. What do you need? Or can you just tell me more about what you're doing so I can understand where you are and what you have to go through, so that you can have a level of compassion for what it is that they do. So that's what I think about that. And thank you to @Doc Jr. on Instagram. He is an amazing musician and producer. So y'all can check him out. I'm literally just like, these are comments that are on my page. So I wanted to shout out those that have responded. I do have more, and I will definitely tap into those maybe next episode, just to knock out the rest of those, so we'll do more questions, answers, feedback on other episodes. But this particular topic, I wanted to share some of these perspectives because it's interesting to see what things people deal with and where they may be similar, where they may be totally different, but all in all, just knowing that there are different struggles and things that we go through as creative people that people have no idea about. So with that being said, I think we're good for today. I just wanted to jump in and start sharing those commentaries. Please, 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 if you enjoyed this episode, if you have been enjoying the episodes that have happened, please go to the creativeandprocess.com website and leave a voice note. It's really cool. You can literally just press the button and record whatever you want to say. You could just say, I love the podcast. You can say, I hate the podcast. You could say, I got a question about this. Or you could say, yeah, on one episode you talked about this and I want to share my thoughts about blah, 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 blah. And what happens when you do that is it will allow me to put them in future episodes and make topics out of it, make it themed and all of that kind of stuff. So it's a really cool thing to check out. So go and do that, and also stay connected, like, comment, share, and all that. I'm a, repeat that at the end too. But all of that to say thank you so much for tuning in again to the Creative and Process podcast. We are growing. Thank you for adjusting with me. If you have been following along, I'm playing with some different formats and segments and that sort of thing to try to see what's going to be the best fit for as we go forward, and see what you all gravitate to and what you like. So that's where we at. And I can't wait to speak to you again on the next episode. Peace out, all of the good things. And remember that as you journey on, I don't care what you do in life, what your career path is, find the harmony in the thing. When you have the harmony, find what comes beautifully together and allows you to do what you do in a beautiful way that makes sense to what it is that you do. So balance is cool, but harmony, it hits a little bit differently. And give grace to those that are trying to achieve something that you don't understand, and make room for those that you know that you need in your life to help you to stay encouraged to keep doing what you do. Cool beans? All right, until next time. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you want to learn more about the podcast, you can go to creativeandprocess.com, where you can sign up for email alerts, connect on social media, and submit your feedback, thoughts, and questions to have them included in a future episode. If you want to connect with me directly, you can find me at Nealand Music on all social media platforms. And please like, comment, share, subscribe, tell somebody about this podcast because it only goes as far as you help it grow. I'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. Peace out.